So for this question, we'll start with you, Cody. I think everyone agrees that waste and unnecessary spending need to be cut. But when you get down to where the rubber meets the road, sometimes one person's waste is another person's need. How, for example, I was thinking of this on the way here, crossing guards. Often the townships and schools don't have enough money to pay for crossing guards, and people say, well, that's a small thing, we don't need crossing guards. But small children probably do need crossing guards. So you have a very small example of something that could save a few dollars, but really could impact someone if there was an accident. How do you decide, in other words, what's waste and unnecessary spending and what's needed? We'll start with Cody.
Let me talk about something that's unnecessary spending in Pennsylvania. Two simple things. One, corporate welfare. The state of Pennsylvania, just like the state of Michigan, has wasted millions on trying to attract businesses that are retail industry based, that moves jobs from one retail business to another. The truth is, you're not going to shop any more than you're already shopping. We had it happen in South Strabane. We had the waste of tax dollars, supposedly for a Bass Pro Shop, that never came. Every politician ran there to say jobs, jobs, jobs. We handed them NIDs, we handed them TIFs, we handed them away our tax dollars. So we could have people buy guns not from George Romanoff at Ace Sporting Goods, but from a corporation based in Missouri. And every one of our politicians said, that's a great idea. And we waste millions. And then you wonder why the people that are doing the road projects and everybody else are the ones feeding the politicians, because everybody benefits except the public. That's what Pennsylvania government has been. It got worse under Rendell, and it continues down that path. It has to stop. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Brandon, your thoughts on how you distinguish unnecessary spending from something that is necessary for people?
A lot of it is going back to common sense. Necessary spending is education, is helping people that we need to help. Kids that need health care. They don't get to choose what family that they grow up in. They need to have a good education. They need to have health care. Children, all children. We need to make sure that seniors are provided with adequate funding so that they can live properly. The Social Security has not been going up in years. We need to find opportunities to use everything that we have for those necessities. Now, wasteful spending. There's a ton of wasteful spending in Harrisburg. You have to look at each bureaucracy. You can't make huge cuts just flatline. You have to delve into it. One example that is an example of wasteful spending that overlaps is the Pennsylvania Instant Check System. It's a system that the national system, they have the same exact system and it's free. We spend $9 million to run a system that we could have for free. If you go into each bureaucracy, you'll be able to make cuts. You'll be able to see how what is necessary and what is not. Now, government has grown over the last 8 years. They need to make efforts to slow and decrease the size of government, make sure that the necessities are provided, such as education and health care for children, but at the same time, they need to make the cuts that are necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. And you'll be the first starter on the next question. How about cutting the legislature? What are your feelings on cutting the size of the legislature?
Cutting the size of the legislature is an easy way to cut costs. I don't believe there would be an argument here that people were complaining that there's too many legislators if the cost wasn't so high. But if we decrease the size of the legislature, we also decrease costs. It's not as simple as me just saying we're going to decrease the size of the legislature. We need to understand that there's a constitutional convention that needs to take place. I believe in a constitutional convention. I believe that we need to vote for a constitutional convention and limit it to the size of the legislature. And then so that everybody has an opportunity to get the facts, their argument points before the Constitutional Convention, and know what they're arguing. We don't want any surprises at the Constitutional Convention. We're dealing with the Constitution. We want to make sure that everybody knows what they're dealing with, that the size of the legislature, if that's the issue that we're going to address, which I'm in favor of decreasing the size of the legislature, Pennsylvania's population has gone down. So why do we have the same amount of legislators? So we need to have a constitutional convention. It needs to be prepared. People need to be able to prepare their arguments and understand what they're arguing before we do have a constitutional convention, and it needs to be limited. Thank you.
Thank you. Cody, your thoughts on cutting the legislature?
Most of the moves to cut legislatures and supposedly reform movements end up creating the power of the bureaucracy being bigger. Ask yourself something. Why is Mike Manzo, the gentleman got convicted that was working for DeWeese, why did he get paid more than Bill DeWeese? This happens in states all over the country. The real problem is we need to cut the bureaucracy. We need to cut the staff that surrounds these people. The legislatures are the voice of the people in the government. Let's cut the people who are actually controlling them. And you'll save a lot more money than if you cut the legislature down by a third. You'd save a lot more money. And I'm actually going to quote, Nick will be shocked, I'm going to quote Jesse White because he came to that same argument. He convinced me of it, and it's right. The problem is the amount of staff we have. Not just the legislators themselves, but the whole bureaucracy of just running the legislature versus the legislators themselves. Let's save real money. Let's look at how we save real money. Not talking points and stuff that's designed to get votes, but how do we actually save the money?
Thank you. Okay, Cody, you'll start the next response. And I'm going to turn to the Marcellus Shale issues, and I'd like to break it down. We have a lot of questions that have come in on this. I'd like to break it down into a number of different points. First of all, we'll start with the permits. New York took a very different approach than Pennsylvania did to permitting well drilling, and put a moratorium on until they studied the issue and decided what was safe and what was not, or until they do decide that. Pennsylvania went ahead and gave out a lot of drilling permits, and now is kind of, I think many people are wondering if this was the appropriate way to go, if we resolve the safety issues. Do you think that we went about it the right way or not? And do you think that there's an appropriate delay that should be taken now to make sure that we have it right?
Well, I don't think we need a delay on drilling. I do think that what we need is to make sure that we have proper safeguards in place for the long haul, depending on what these environmental impacts are. One of the things that we proposed is a bond issue on every site, and you make it linked, so if they have 100 sites and one site's bad, all the money from all the bonds can be used to remediate that site. If the goal is the environment, then fine. Let's have a bond issue, tell by the business that the legislature can't get their dirty little hands on and spend in the general fund and actually use it to clean up those sites if there's a problem. So we're pro-business, they're able to make money off the interest on the bond, but at the same time, and the business can grow, at the same time, we're ensuring that the environment's protected. Instead, New York went with the cut it off, and Pennsylvania went with the let it run. And I get asked that all the time, are you for or against going door to door? It's simple, it's for balance. What's in the best interest of the community long term? The middle ground. The part that no one wants to talk about because it doesn't get you votes one way or another. It's about finding solutions. That's what we're really supposed to be doing.
Brandon, your